Hello, everybody. I hope you guys are having a fantastic day. Today, we are going to discuss conflict resolution. We need to talk about how to resolve personal conflicts between one person and another person. Now, some of these can be created into more of a group context, but today we're specifically discussing personal conflict resolution. First of all, we need to discuss the difference between our feeling or our need to be validated versus our need to resolve conflict. There is a complete difference between resolving a conflict or needing to feel validated. Needing to feel validated is like, hey, these are my feelings, and I need somebody to tell me I'm not wrong. I need somebody to tell me that it is perfectly okay and natural for me to feel this way. Now, many times we go to our friends, our tribe, our people to look for that validation. Now, is that need for validation a bad thing? Not necessarily. But can it be carried too far? Absolutely. So you need to decide first and foremost, are you wanting to resolve a conflict or are you wanting to be validated? Okay? Sometimes we get into a debate with someone and we just want them to see our point of view. That is to be validated. Now, many times we say, oh, hey, I really want to be heard. Okay? There is a difference between being heard and being validated. Being validated is for somebody to look at you and say, you know what, you're not wrong. You know, you're absolutely right in how you're feeling. Your feelings are valid. Here's the trap, though. We need to know that our feelings are valid whether somebody considers them right or wrong. It doesn't matter ultimately if somebody considers our feelings correct or incorrect. The point of the matter is you have those feelings in that moment. They are yours. They are real. They are valid. Now, are your feelings based on a correct supposition? Is it a traditional way to respond? That's something that you can evaluate later. But the truth of the matter is how you feel is how you feel. Now, if you want somebody to hear you, you actually have to let go of that need to be validated. At that point, you have a need to be heard. I want you to hear me out, and I want you to give me your opinion on my feelings and my thoughts. Am I having an incorrect perspective, or is there something that I'm missing about that? Okay, being heard is somebody hearing, okay, I see. Yeah, and they can agree or disagree. When you're saying I want to be heard, you are giving somebody that you are talking to, your audience, in this problem, in your feelings, you are giving your audience a chance to change your perspective, to agree or to disagree. So being heard is different from being validated, and that you're allowing somebody to disagree. Wanting to be validated, you're not going to feel okay until somebody agrees with you and tells you, yes, this is exactly right and how you should be feeling. Okay? So neither one of these things are part of conflict resolution. Now, being heard is an important part to work through during conflict resolution, hearing and being heard, and it has to be in equal measures, okay? So let's talk now about conflict resolution. Let's assume that there is a conflict or disagreement and you want to get this resolved. You want the conflict to end. Okay? So let's talk about how we resolve conflict. Now, one of the first questions is, let's say that you're not getting validation from the person that you're in conflict with. I go up to Susie and I'm like, Susie, this is how I feel. And Susie's like, I disagree. I don't think you're looking at this right. Okay, now she may have heard me. She may have completely blown me off. But the fact of the matter is, Susie is not validating me. And sometimes that can amp it up just a little extra bit because now I'm feeling unvalidated and defensive about my need to be validated. So we need to turn around and understand that when you're doing a conflict resolution, the very fact that there's a conflict means that there is somehow a disagreement of perspectives. So in order to engage in conflict resolution, we must first release our need to be validated. Okay, now, how do we go about resolving this conflict? First of all, do we do it public or private? Public rarely is a way that will bring any kind of resolution whatsoever. If you're trying to do public conflict resolution, it often inflames the conflict by involving others and creating more polarity, not less. It's a kind of a last-ditch tactic in personal conflict resolution, and it's most of the time 100% unnecessary. When people bring conflict resolution public, they are more often than not seeking the validation, not the resolution. Okay, so here are the stages that you should involve yourself in with conflict resolution, and these will be in the text of the video. Okay, 1. Decide what you would like to accomplish with this interaction. You've got to go into conflict resolution with a goal. What are you wanting to accomplish? Are you needing to accomplish a property division? This belongs to you, this belongs to me. Are you wanting to accomplish the restoral of a friendship? Are you wanting to accomplish an equitable passing of ways? Are you wanting to accomplish them doing their thing and you're doing your thing without a whole bunch of interference from each other? What is it that you want to accomplish in this conflict resolution interaction? That needs to be decided first and foremost. Now notice that in none of that was, I need to be validated. I need to get my pound of flesh for somebody to understand my perspective. Again, you have to release, for proper conflict resolution, you have to release that need for validation. Second part of the stage is now you approach the person that you have a conflict with. Okay? Hey, I would like to conflict resolution. And if you're looking for, how to go into those conversations, well, there's a book for that, Crucial Conversations. But you go to that person first that you have the conflict with. It is always advisable to go directly to the party at first. Now, if you're having a difficult time with that, then you can move on to step 3, which would be to find a neutral party or a party that has some authority over both of you, or perceived authority over the two parties involved, in order to assist. In other words, let's take this into a working situation. You have a coworker, you've gone to this person that you have a conflict with, they're not willing to deal with anything. You know your goal is to be able to work together, get the job done so you can go home at the end of the day and collect your paycheck. Okay, so you've gone to the person you're having conflict with, and they're talk to the hand, no way, shape, form, or fashion willing to entertain conflict resolution. So at that point, you can go to the third party, or maybe you're just face-offing so much that neither of you can even get in a word in edgewise because you're both so So go to a neutral party or a party in authority to assist you. Number 4, very important. You must at that point let go of your need to be right. Again, we're going back into the whole validation thing, where you do not require the validation of the other person. This is not about being right. Okay, which takes us to step 5, which is keeping your ultimate goal in mind. Remember that goal you started with? Kind of got to go back to it and say, okay, it's not about me being right. It's about me being able to work with this idiot so that I do not kill them or kill somebody else in the process. Okay? So I just need to find a way to work with this person. I don't need them to acknowledge me as being right, and I don't need to accept that I'm wrong. I just need to find a way to accomplish my goal. Then the final stage here is number 6, be willing to compromise. Compromise is often stated as a solution that neither party is fully happy with, but both can find acceptable. When you're in a full conflict resolution where no agreement can be reached, there must be a context for compromise, where you have to let go of some of your less important parts to be able to ultimately accomplish your number 1 goal. Okay, what happens if you can't resolve the conflict? Well, then at that point you need to decide if the conflict even needs to be resolved. Okay, if you absolutely find that you cannot work with Susie, then does it need to be resolved, or can you possibly request a transfer? Can you possibly request getting on a different shift, a different schedule? Is there a context to being able to walk away? Is there a way that you can just keep distance? Does it even need to be resolved? Okay. Or are you just wanting your pound of flesh? Are you just wanting other people to validate you? We go right back to the validation thing again. You really need to, at that point, evaluate, what do I gain or lose by pursuing this resolution need of mine? Am I really conflict resolutioning at this point? What do I gain or lose by continuing to pursue this conflict resolution? Okay, now if you find that this really has to be addressed, you need the job, you can't quit. Susie's a complete and total bitch, you can't transfer departments, whatever, then you need to find alternate approaches or solutions. And then revisit the stages that we talked about with your new goals in mind, okay? And so that's the point where you sit down and decide again, what would you like to accomplish with this interaction? Obviously, you weren't able to accomplish your last goal. So is there another goal that you're okay with accomplishing? Okay, see if that person is willing to engage with you on that goal. If not, find a neutral party. Maybe you got to take it up a notch. Okay, get a party that maybe the other person finds more trustworthy than you do, that they will have more faith in. Maybe you need to take it up a manager level, so on and so forth. Okay, again, you have to be willing to let go of your need to be right, keep your ultimate goal in mind, and be willing to compromise. All right, now ultimately you do that until you kind of run out of options. All right, there are times where you run out of options, and maybe the only solution at that point is for you to quit your job, or for you to cut that person out of your life, because it has gotten to a context where you can no longer handle it, walking away from the situation. Okay, either way, there's always an after the conflict. Okay, so how do we process our feelings while we are in this conflict, or even after the conflict? Okay, first of all, one of my favorite things is finding a neutral party, someone who can listen to you without getting involved. And what do I mean by getting involved? Somebody who doesn't necessarily need to validate you or validate somebody else. They can simply listen to you and understand. And sometimes that's what we really need. We think we need validation, but we just need somebody to listen and maybe understand our perspective, even if they don't agree with it. But you need to do it with somebody who's not going to be like, oh, hell no, I'm going to get up and I'm going to go and involve myself in the middle of this, or I'm going to get emotional about it, or I'm going to get whatever. You need to find that neutral party who can listen and be a part of this without being emotionally compromised. Okay? Next thing to do is to meditate, to understand yourself and your own motivations. What were your motivations in dealing with this? How has this changed you and affected you? Understanding yourself and your motivations. Then you can think about how you could handle situations like this in the future. Could your response be improved? If you go back and relook at your perspective from a few different ways, were you really at a point where this had to be created, where this conflict needed to be addressed, so on and so forth? And this is not a gaslighting stage. This is not a stage for you to gaslight yourself. This is a stage for you to be brutally honest. Yes, that needed to be resolved, because let me tell you, Susie throwing her shit in my face every day, I was going to kill somebody. But is there something I could have done at the very beginning of this, when Susie first started her problem behaviors, that could have possibly headed it off from getting that bad? Maybe. Maybe not. Maybe this was just recognizing that behavior and distancing myself from it before it gets to that point. So when you're going through this, you kind of go all the way back to the beginning of the conflict to see, how could things have been handled differently? Could my response have been improved? And sometimes, I will tell you, sometimes the answer will be no. You couldn't have handled it any better than you did. With what you knew at the time, you couldn't have handled it any better than you did. But seeing it and learning from it might be able to change how I deal with it in the future. Okay, so you can make new stratagems for the future by recognizing behaviors. Then the last stage of this is walking away from the situation emotionally, knowing that you did the best you could, even if you fucked it up, even if you didn't. You did the best you could at the time with what you knew at the time. You've learned from it, and you have a plan for any future similar encounters. Okay, these are how you process your feelings through conflict resolution after. So I hope that this has helped and blessed you and given you some enrichment on how to possibly handle conflict resolution in the future. Now, the whole part of how do you have these conversations it is a whole nother ball game. And that's something that we will get into at some point, but I do highly recommend the book, Crucial Conversations, Tools for Talking When the Stakes Are High. This is a book that is available on YouTube on audio for free. It's about 6.5 hours. You can go to my website, ladyshia.com, and there will be a link to the YouTube version of this book where you can go and listen to it. You can also purchase it. I believe it's like $16 on Amazon and even cheaper on Kindle. So those will give you some of the tools that you can use in actually accomplishing the finer points of the conversations that need to be had in doing conflict resolution. But this will give you a good general overview so that you can think about how you want to handle your next conflict. Because you know what? This is life. This is the world. And there will always be a context for conflict, no matter how much we try to avoid it. It is not whether or not we are going to have an embroilment in some type of conflict or a need for conflict resolution. It is when we have it and how we choose to deal with it. So I hope this helps and blesses you. You guys have an amazing day. Merry meet, merry part, until we merry meet again. Namaste, y'all.